start, or did you?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Terry, our wonderful Terry Watson with Text TESOL, would you like to say anything to the folks, or would you like me to just get started?
Carol, I'm going to just say welcome. I'm super excited to hear this presentation. I've been waiting for this one, so I'm just going to let you get started.
Well, I'm so excited about that. Thank you so much. It's a great honor. I was just in Elise Diaz's session. That was so good. The more that we can learn about how to support our multilingual learners from all different aspects, the better we are. So I just want to say thank you to Text TESOL for allowing us to share today. I am going to be sharing, you do not need, what I'm sharing today, my purpose today is to share things that you can turn around and share with anybody else that you work with, or you can go put it on Facebook or Twitter. You can take a picture of every single slide and tell people, maybe you didn't see that session, but here are all the resources. Everything is out there for free. It does not require the purchase of anything. And I'm going to tell you why that's real important to me when we work with emergent bilinguals, especially older students. I have a picture of the book that I wrote with Anna Mattis. I am a Seidlitz education consultant, but the reason that I have this book is because I'm sharing from it. You don't need it, but I am going to be sharing a couple of pages from it just to show you where this information is. Also, though, I am going to share with you a blog post that I wrote about this that is linked to research and all kinds of other things. So here's what I'm going to ask first. I know there's just a handful of us, but a lot of folks are going to watch this in replay. So if you're watching it in, I hope they'll watch it in replay. So if you are watching in replay, whenever we talk or look at the chat, just jot down on a piece of paper, ask yourself, and then you're going to hear what people said. And so that gives you an opportunity to reflect and hear other people. So here's what I'm going to ask you. Real time, this is February. And teachers in February are like, oh my God, we're in the middle of testing season too. But I'm just asking you, how's it going? It's a Saturday morning for people who are here live. So I just want to lift you up for being anywhere on Saturday morning. But I'm going to ask you to put in the chat the answer, but I'm going to ask you to think about it in terms of weather. I'm in Houston, Texas, and we're in Texas, and Texas has been seeing crazy weather lately. But how are things going? Like, you could here's a sentence starter for you. So it's a metaphor, right? It could be stormy. It could be cloudy in your life right now, but there could be a chance of something coming up. Would you think about this metaphor? You don't have to use this sentence. Anything you want to put in the chat. And in all honesty, you don't have to put anything in the chat, right? You could just listen. But if you're watching this in replay, and just kind of ask yourself, what kind of weather metaphor would I use to say how things are going? Let me give you just a moment to type something in the chat. How are you? I'm not going to call on anybody. I know if you've been to Seidlitz trainings, we randomly call on folks. So I'm not going to do that, especially because there are folks watching in replay. But if I were with my class, elementary, middle, high school, this would be a conversation to start the class. Since the pandemic, thankfully, one thing that we do a little more of are these SEL check-ins. I just mentioned Elise Diaz and how important she was talking about relationships and getting to know kids, and just, giving them an opportunity to talk about how things are going with them. That's how we get to know them. Her discover, connect, respond routine. This would kind of be part of the discover part, I think. So thank you, Elise. Elise is saying sunny conditions are expected. But if you have a kiddo coming in, maybe they put it on a Post-it note and everybody puts them over on the wall. I've seen people just have emojis and just put your name by the emoji of how you feel today. It gives me insight as an educator of how the kiddo is, it gives me insight if kiddos are saying it's super cloudy or it's stormy or things like that. Hey, Sharon, thanks for putting that at your house. It's actually partly cloudy, but she has a bike ride scheduled. So she's saying quite literally what it is. But we could also say, okay, that bike ride, whether it rains or not, it might make you feel sunny. It might make you feel like something. So it's just a little quick check-in. And I really love this one because we're working with emergent bilinguals. So anytime we can do metaphors, we're asking them for higher order thinking. We're asking you to take something and put it in other words and make connections and things like that. But there's also a lot of vocabulary here, right? There's a lot of, we're supposed to teach weather, right? I mean, if you have newcomers, well, we can do this in different ways that kind of tie into SEL and things. So thank you for humoring me with that, folks that engaged. I do work for Seidlitz Education. I've taught elementary, middle, and high school, and I'm extremely honored to be working with the folks in this picture. Some of you had an opportunity to see Elise Diaz this morning, who's fabulous, still working with Frisco ISD, and an adjunct working many days with us as well. And this is our newcomer division, Dr. Marie Heath, Dr. Michelle Izquierdo, and myself. And as you can see, we do lots of things to support districts, so please reach out if we can help you with anything. But again, today I'm going to give you a lot of resources where you don't need to do anything but go back and try to use them. So here is the first resource. The other thing too, like I said, you can take a picture of this slide if you want to. You can take a picture of this slide and you'll have the Padlet. There is a Padlet. I do a full day workshop on literacy for emergent bilinguals. Literacy specifically for older emergent bilinguals. So upper elementary, middle, and high school. And so I have this Padlet. This information is on that Padlet because it's a strong suggestion to use NewsinLevels. And so I just want you to have the Padlet. So at the bottom of almost every slide, at the bottom of almost every slide is this Padlet. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it in the chat. But if you're watching it in replay, you know that you can just type this into your browser and you would, let me do the one with the link in the chat. I didn't know it's changing the link address, but if you type that into your browser, it will take you to that Padlet. And again, let me just show you the Padlet. So people that are watching in replay, type it in. If you want it in the chat, it's right there. If you want to look at it later or never want to look at it, you can take a picture of that slide, and the address is at the bottom of many slides. So if you go on this Padlet, you'll see there are many things that I'm sharing when I do this workshop. This recent webinar by the Office of English Language Acquisition, our federal government, about effective literacy instruction for multilingual learners. So I want folks to know that what I'm sharing, even what we were sharing years ago when we wrote the Boosting Achievement book, goes right in line with what's recommended, the kind of context and things that multilingual learners need as they're gaining literacy, phonetics, all of the things that everybody needs. Our multilingual learners need context. And so Elise Diaz, I keep saying her name, but she did a webinar for us, and it's in here where you can see what it looks like at middle school, what it could look like. A lot of folks did those for NELPA, which is the National Association of EL Program Administrators. So just letting you know, there's a ton out there in the world for how to support literacy. And I'm going to dive into this right here. I am going to dive into my podcast, episode 83, how to use NewsinLevels. So again, people who are not here, you want to share this with your friend or your faculty, or just send them to this Padlet, tell them to watch that, listen to that podcast. There's video there, but this Padlet has quite a bit specifically for literacy. All right, so you have that link in the chat, and you will have at the bottom of many slides. Also, here's some hashtags at the bottom. Please do share. People who couldn't come to Text TESOL should see what great things Text TESOL is doing. And, let's drive membership to Text TESOL and share with people the kind of things that we're learning so they come to the conference next year if they were not here. Thank you, Sarah Gendry. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. You're the queen of sharing also. All right. So use the text TESOL hashtag, use the rapid literacy hashtag. Let's just share. This is the direct link to this show, the show that I'm talking about. You have it on the Padlet, but I'm putting it in the chat also. All right. Because I know people are watching in replay. I don't want to just keep putting things in the chat. I want you to know this is the short link right here. bit.ly/capital BAP for Boosting Achievement Podcast 083. You're watching in replay, that's how you get all that. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. What I'm going to offer you, if you'll follow my cursor, it's right here. Imagine I'm at my board. And let's imagine this is not yet annotated, but I just want to get past the objectives real quick. We will use, already my objectives are wrong. We will reflect. There we go. Erase that in your mind. Let's pretend that didn't happen. We will reflect on the use of NewsinLevels.com to support the language acquisition and reading ability of emergent bilingual students. So I just mean, we're just going to think about it, and we're thinking specifically about this website. There's so many great websites out there, but we're going to talk about how we use this and how you could use other ones. Like what it's the how that makes a big difference. There's no shortage of apps and things like that. How we use this one is a game changer for our emergent bilinguals, in my experience. So, and this one specifically. So when I say we will record our thoughts about free voluntary reading, because this has tons of free voluntary reading potential for us. So we will record our thoughts about free voluntary reading using the chat or our own paper. When I say record it, you're just going to type it into the chat or write it on your own paper. I do recommend you do that because the person doing the writing or the production of language is the one thinking. So that reflection on your part, I don't care if you can give this session, I can extend your thinking. I can extend the highest kid by giving them an opportunity to reflect. That's why I love language objectives that are productive. They can be listening, speaking, reading, or writing, but these kids are fake reading and they are fake listening. So I always want a speaking or a writing goal. We get a big bang for our buck in that. We get a big bang for our buck. It also sets me up for a good QSSA structured conversation or a quick write. So if we were to write in the chat by the end or at some point, here's my language target. Emergent bilinguals need choice in their reading because. So you can see I'm asking you to reflect on how to use it. We're going to be talking about free voluntary reading. And at some point, that reflection is about choice. We really want to reflect on the choice and what is this, how is this website going to help us? And that's one of the things I want us to talk about is the choice, please. You know, I was in Virginia last year and a teacher was annotating the objectives. And when he got to the language target, he just drew this speech bubble around it on the board. And I thought, how comprehensible. There were some newcomers in the class. How comprehensible is that, just to write the speech bubble about, or you do your hands, we're going to be talking or writing. It is just, I just love everything I learn from teachers everywhere I go. Okay, so in the chat, can you put a Y for yes if you've ever used NewsinLevels? Can you put a Y in the chat? Actually, put an H if you've heard of it, but you haven't used it. Put a Y if you've used it. Yes, or an H, I've heard of it, or an N for now, this is new to me. It's been a while, Sarah. Yeah, I mean, these kind of things when we see, there's so many new things now too. Great, Terry, you've heard of it. Elise, you've heard of it. I think you're going to love what I'm going to show you because there are so many and some are great. Hey, Danielle, I'm so glad. Yay, I'm so glad when it's new to people because it just can blow your mind. It can just blow your mind. And even if you're using something else, the how what I'm going to talk about the how, I think maybe we can apply to other things. Oh, cool, Sharon, you've used it. Okay, cool. So it is at NewsinLevels.com. That's where it is. Let's look at that real quickly. Well, we're going to look at it in just a second. Let's just look at it now. This is going to be just real kind of real life. Like I said, you could go and listen to that podcast. It has links to research on why students should be doing free voluntary reading. If they're reading at home, if they have 5 minutes standing in the grocery store, what do they get out of that? And Stephen Krashen's research is linked there, that even just if you don't want to think about literacy, if you just want to think about language acquisition, Dr. Stephen Krashen's current research is all about reading. His theories right now for years have been the reading is the answer. More reading would have helped you acquire listening, speaking, reading, and writing in his research and what he's saying. So he's asking us to focus more on reading than anything else. I'll be honest, my high school kiddos, when I told them that, they were like, well, that might be true, but we want to practice our speaking. It makes us more comfortable. So, I'm not saying just read. I'm just saying reading has a huge effect. So then the issue is, but our emergent bilinguals struggle to read. I work with SLIVE students or students with limited or interrupted formal education, and some of them come to us and cannot read in their heritage language yet. And we don't have a dual language Swahili program or Vietnamese program. So how do we help them get literacy off the ground? How do we help them, for whatever you subscribe to about how kids learn to read, how do we help them engage with text so that it's meaningful? Sorry, let me make sure this is off. So here's the website. I'm just showing the website, newsinlevels.com. One thing that a lot of people notice right away is that there are a ton of ads, and they're maddening. There are so many ads. I always have teachers reach out to me and say, how do I get rid of the ads? I mean, like, I can click off on this ad so that I don't see it anymore. I can click them so that I don't have to look at them anymore, but they come back. They keep coming back. Well, what I'm going to tell you is you can't, because it's free. It's free. And so we have to put up with ads. We do. I don't think there's any paid version. I haven't seen one that would make this site less. That's how they make their money. But here's what I would also tell you. This is for older students. It's not for elementary students, in my opinion, but don't despair. If you teach elementary, it is fantastic to share with their parents. Because the reason that I don't feel like it's appropriate for elementary students, and it is if it's guided, it is if you use it with them. But I'm using this with my middle and high school kids so that they have choice, so they can pick whatever they want to read with support. And so older kids, they just don't care about the ads as much as as I thought, because they're all about free everything, right? Especially the students that I taught that are low socioeconomic, they all have a phone. 89 or something % of households have some kind of phone. It might not have a data plan. It might have been purchased for $35, but when they get to McDonald's, when they get to the mall, when they get to anywhere, they have the world is there. Don't begrudge any family that, because that's how they communicate with their families back home. That's how they get services. That's how they get everything. So we want to know that this is part of life, right? And we want to know that our kids, I'm just explaining them, there are a lot of ads. You'll be fine. You'll be fine, because this is free. The reason that I feel like it's important that it be this site over one that a teacher logs into is because my kids might get deported tomorrow, or they may have to move because their family needs a different amount of rent over here, or they just might have to move. They might just have to be on the go. So the day that I meet kids with Google Translate, I'm explaining to them that the more you read, the faster your English is going to come. And I want to give you something right now that you can carry in your pocket. And I don't care where you are in the world, you'll be able to continue to learn to read and learn English. It's just, I'm trying to not give a man a fish. Read this in front of me. Let me show you how to do it. We do that in class. We absolutely do that. I'm trying to inspire kids to do things when they're not with me that are of interest and engaging and supportive. They can't get frustrated. If they get frustrated, it's just for nothing. They're going to abandon it. So this website, like I said, it's not, I don't want elementary students, I don't typically hand it to them because the news is scary. It can be scary. But in middle school, in high school, we're constantly telling kids, go out and find a news article, bring back a news article. That's just part of social studies and even language arts and things. So again, at elementary, it's fantastic to show it to their parents and say, here's something you can read with your child. Please, with your child, pick an appropriate article that is of interest to both of you, and it will support you. A lot of our parents don't have literacy. A lot of mine did not. Or they didn't have command of the English language. So this is going to help the parents be able to read with their children, and everybody's English and everybody's literacy is getting a boost. So the beauty of it is that it's choice. It's choice. Like, let me tell you, how would you feel if I said, oh, I know you like this article. You're interested in German tanks in Ukraine, but I want you to read this one about a doomsday clock. No, I want you to read this one. And there's going to be a test on it afterwards. Not this one, this one. We have to do that sometimes in class. We have to do that. We have to dictate what they read. But free voluntary reading has to be about choice. It has to be about choice. So we're going to look at how is it that when students, they don't have the ability yet, remember, I'm talking about kiddos. Let's think about our most marginalized kids, our students who don't yet have literacy in their heritage language, and maybe they're a newcomer. This was a game changer. I'm going to show you how we did it together in class. But the more they read and the more they engage with us, the more they're going to be able to navigate a simple piece of text. Maybe they're using technology to navigate that simple piece of text. I just want them to be back in the English. As their ESL teacher, or somebody that works with them after school, or a volunteer or whatever, if I'm helping them acquire English, comprehension is not of the text, is not my primary concern initially. Higher order thinking about text is, but I want to make it comprehensible. I want to give them the comprehension so that we can talk about characterization and compare it to other texts and hit grade level standards until the student is able to independently decode the text. See, it's kind of tricky, right? How can I keep them at grade level and at the highest levels of Bloom's if they can't yet read the text? Well, we can do that. We just adapt it. We might give them to in their native language. We might give it to them in a shorter version. We might show them the movie and then come to the text. There's a lot of ways to adapt a grade level text. But every single day, I want that child building their ability to decode the text independently. Every day I want to move their English. Every day I want to move their English literacy too, right? So the more they read, as Krashen says, the more they're in text, the faster this all comes. Here are some things that Anna Mattis and I wrote about. What can a kid read? Well, they can read high interest, low reading level books. Saddleback is my favorite. High, low readers. They sell them. But let's think of some things you don't have to buy. Even though if you're going to buy any books, I buy Saddleback books, high, low readers. They're awesome. Saddleback education, because they're like high school themes, but low readability. Baby books are not that interesting to the high schoolers or middle schoolers. They might be compliant, they might do it for you, but that doesn't mean they get lost in a text because they're so interested in it. That's what we're looking for, high interest. So here are some things that can be high interest. We wrote about high-low readers. We wrote about shared texts that we create together. Maybe we're reading about Romeo and Juliet. Maybe we're reading about The Great Gatsby, but I can make it comprehensible. The grade level text, we can read one page of it. And my small group or my class can talk about the characterization. We can talk about the figurative language. We can talk about the author's purpose, whatever grade level standards we're also trying to hit. We can do that with a portion of the text, and then we can write about it together. What do you guys think? What do you think about the characterization? Have them talk and talk with QSSA, ways that we know we can get our emergent bilinguals talking. And then I write what they say. If I write what they say, that is a shared text that we wrote about the grade level content, and they can read it because they helped me write it. Might not be reading proficiently yet, but we're going to read it again. We're going to read it again. They're going to do something else with that text. We're creating our mentor text. Okay, so that's another show. That's another podcast, but materials we've practiced. Maybe they're doing a play. Maybe they're doing something, rereading. It's not about comprehension. It's about fluency at that point. Books in their native language, heritage language. We're going to promote literacy. Okay, let's tell them to turn on the closed captioning. A lot of these videos that they want to read, I don't like the words that rap artist is using, but you have to admit English words going across is good for kids. All these websites that have immersive readers now that will read to the students, Google will do that now. So think about the fact that tech can help them see the words they're starting to comprehend. Every day they know more English. And the last one that Anna and I said as one of the top tips is this NewsinLevels. NewsinLevels. So let's get into how we might use it. Let me show you this real quick and ask you if you will put a word in the chat that you think is an important word. Just any word that you think is important. This page is page 80 from the book. So I'm going to read it. And when you get to a word, even if you're watching this in replay, jot the word down. What's a word that you feel is important? Free voluntary reading is a research-based and effective method for rapidly developing literacy. Instructional gaps experienced by students who are SIFE or have interrupted formal education or limited formal education often place them 3 or 4 grade levels behind their peers of the same age. This literacy gap is sometimes even wider because of low or non-existent literacy in the student's primary or native language. How do we help students who are SIFE fill this gap? That's what Anna and I are asking ourselves and about to write more about in this book. How do we help a student that has interrupted education, low levels of literacy in their native language, or just brand new to English? How do we help them fill that literacy gap? Getting students hooked on reading is a critical component in building literacy skill and encouraging reading, both inside and outside the classroom. My students had 2 jobs after school, many of them. That's why I wanted them to have this little app that if they had 5 minutes, if they had 10 minutes, if they really wanted to go faster, the more you read, the more you can read. Okay, so it means students are excited not only about reading itself, but what they are reading. I want them to have material that they want to read, not that I'm assigning to them. That's why it's free, voluntary. Often people say, how do you check what they're reading? How do you, what kind of test, what kind of assessment? You don't. This is free, voluntary reading. Now, what we do like literature conversations. We have 15 minutes of reading. And if you want to do NewsinLevels or you want a book from the, but we're going to talk about what we read. And I'm going to walk around and get a formative assessment. Or do you recommend your book? Everybody, give me a thumbs up if you recommend your book. Give me a thumbs down if you don't recommend this article. And we're going to talk to each other about it. So we often talk about what we read. And I can tell. I also get to know the kids, that discover part that Elise was talking about, Elise Diaz, about how important it is for kids who've gone through trauma, that we get to know them. So this, giving them free voluntary reading time is important on so many different levels and for so many different reasons. Okay, so this is kind of where this is coming from. Here's what it looks like when we go back to the website and I show you how we use it. The how is the most important part to me. I love that they know about it, but there are tons of sites out there helping kids learn English, helping with literacy. It's the how that I feel is so important in this one. So just to kind of give you an overview, when you pick an article, when you as the student pick an article, it comes there in 3 different levels. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. This is where the how part comes in. It's very important. So let me back up a minute because I know there are always people, well, my kids couldn't even read that level 1. All right. We start the school year as a class, we vote on an article, we do it together, and I'm showing them how to do it. I don't care how long you spend in level 1. You can spend a week in level 1. Everybody needs to start in level 1. And also show you some ways that the kids get comprehension from it. Even if they have, this is not their level, this is too high for them, this level 1. Very quickly can they use level 1. Remember, there are other things when we are with them in class. There are other things they're reading with us every day. We're reading the text that we wrote together. We're reading the text that we've made more simplistic. They're tracking the print. Every single day they understand a little more English. I'm just making sure they have words and text. I might do some phonetics lesson. Well, of course I'm going to do some phonetics lessons, but it's amazing that when I start tracking who can read what by just highlighting a piece of paper, like what can you read to me from this piece of text? Okay, I don't have to do a whole lot of that. A bunch of my kids spoke Spanish one year. We didn't have to do all the phonetics. A lot of them already had a lot of the English phonetics. So again, on the Rapid Literacy Padlet, there are webinars about context for students if you're teaching foundational skills. But this webinar today, this session, is about how you get them hooked so that they take the skills they're getting with you and go, like, without anybody making them, start reading on their own with support. This website is super supportive. Okay, so don't forget that these things are also happening. I'm just giving them this treasure trove of reading material. But what's really, really important, is that they understand the power of why I'm asking them to do something in a particular order. Here's where the magic is, in my opinion. It's how we do it. So let's say we've done this as a class a couple of times. They understand. I'm explaining to them. You cannot just jump into level 3. I have higher kids. I don't know why in my newcomer class, they always put advanced kids in there, 1 or 2. I know why, because it was high school the last couple of years, and sometimes kids just need a credit to graduate. So I've got brand new newcomers with a kid who's almost, advanced high. This is just like our reality. Plus the other thing too, maybe they're all newcomers in your after school group or your small group or whatever, but kids go at different rates. So some point in the school year, I've got kids saying, oh, miss, I can do level 3. I'm looking at these articles, but I'm grabbing level 3 every time. Okay, I'm proud of you, but please don't do that. Let me show you why. If you can read level 3, level 1's so easy for you that it should just take you a second, right? So please just start at level 1. Here are the rules for how to use it. I do want to show you also in this blog post, everything I'm saying is in a podcast, and I talk to you through Krashen's research. Oh, here's a video for your kids. It's 5 minutes going, do you want to use NewsinLevels? This is how you do it. Because I wanted my kids to be able to see that. I'm giving a man a fish or teaching a man to fish. We want to teach them how to do this. And so here are the steps. Read level 1. I don't care how proficient you are. Read level 1, even if you can read beyond level 1. If level 1 is too difficult, click on the read aloud. It might be a SoundCloud link and a podcast link, or it might be a YouTube video, but click on it. And even if, in my opinion, even if it's not too difficult, go ahead and let it read to you. Track the print with your eyes because you're getting the pronunciation of words. So there's nothing wrong. I'm not asking you to comprehend, but level 1 is where you get comprehension of this article. So you track the print with your eyes. That's really important when you're just gaining English or advancing your English language acquisition. Track the print with your eyes while it reads aloud to you. Oh, in level 1, notice that the verbs are in the present tense. You don't have to make a big deal about that. I'm not asking you to do verb work or word work. I'm just like, okay, it might sound funny because it's a news article, but it's written in the present. Short sentences in the present tense. And if you need to use the internet to understand level 1, go for it. Go for it. Translate the whole thing if you need to, but come back to the English because this is about language acquisition. So I would offer you don't have to translate the whole thing. And some of my kids couldn't because they didn't have native language literacy. But again, we're reading together every day, every day, every day. And at some point, we are able to get high frequency words. The kiddos picked this article. They picked it themselves. So they, even if they just get the gist of it, they're interested in it. So let me show you what I mean. I want them to read level 1, even if level 1's too easy, but let's pretend it's very, very difficult for them. When they finally get through level 1, however long that takes, then don't go to another article. Do not go to another article. It says your next job, sorry, I had to stop, do annotations. Your next job after you read level 1 is to go to level 2. Once you understand the story, move to level 2. Don't go to a different article. Just listen to level 2. Just get exposure to it. Track the print because it's written differently. Same thing with level 3. So let me show you. Again, let me stop right there. There are great apps out there and programs like NewsELA. I'm a huge fan of NewsELA. It levels articles for teachers so that they can give real news articles to the kids. It's got so many things for the teachers. It's fantastic. Don't stop doing that. That's great if you use NewsELA. What I'm offering you, though, is if that kid gets deported or if they move, they don't have access to it anymore. They don't have access to you anymore. I want them to have something that's completely free and they know how to use it to accelerate their language acquisition. So I'm teaching them how to use this for their own free voluntary reading if they finish work early in my class or if they're standing in line at Walmart. You pick an article. Super important that when you start doing it on your own, nobody's telling you what article to pick. There are thousands of articles and a few are added every single day. So pick the one that's of interest to you, not the one. As educators, we do not dictate what they read for free voluntary reading time, right? Okay, so let's go to level 1. Let's say we are interested in this article. The pictures, sometimes my kids couldn't read any of this, but that was an interesting picture. Dangerous way for Chinese children. Okay, I want to see that. I can't understand any of that, but this picture looks interesting. That's a kid. What's going on there? Okay, but let's go to this one that I found of interest. A dangerous pill. I'm looking at medicines. I can't read any of this English, but let me just see if I can get any comprehension from this. So again, level 1 is in the present tense in very short sentences. Here's where I started doing it differently. I had used this before, but the great thing is it only goes to here. It's that long. These are just difficult words and words that have a little explanation. So this is all I'm asking them to read. And again, it's in the present tense. At least 33 people die in the UK. They use a slimming pill. A slimming pill helps people lose weight. Well, let's say they can't read that. Let's remember that students' listening comprehension may be higher than their independent reading ability. So I want everybody to read it anyway and listen to it for pronunciation. Let's listen. Uh-oh, what happened to it? Hang on just a second. Oh, my internet's giving me trouble. Of course. Let me go to another one and see if it's the article or if it is my internet. Oh, it seems to be that particular article. Anyway, let's see. Okay, a group of Chinese children from one village have a dangerous way home from school. Like present tense, right? So let's just listen.
A group of Chinese children from one village have a dangerous way home from school. If they want to go home, they must go over a big mountain. The children go only up and up 20 meters. It is very dangerous.
Okay.
When they go.
It sounds better when you're looking at on your own. There's an app, right? So maybe they're on their phone, or maybe they're on their Chromebook or their iPad or your computer. Or I had kids come into the library before and after school and at lunch just to listen to these articles. So, and again, like the other one didn't work. Okay, it's free. It's free. Let's not get freaked out that because it's written outside of the United States, sometimes they spell harbor with a U, O-U-R, and neighbor with, okay, we're not going to worry about that. We want kids flooded with text that is supported, that they get to choose. So look, present tense, right? A group of Chinese children from one village have a dangerous way home from school. What if you understand a lot of those words, but you don't understand the word village? I would watch my Slife kids who could not read in English take the word and hit Google Images and just look at, what could a village be? Oh, it must be a place where people live. It must be something like a town or a city. Okay. And then they would go back. So let's not think that because kids can't read in their native language, that they can't navigate text that's read aloud to them and that technology can't help them. Look at all the high frequency words, a, of, from, have, a. It's always going to be about half high frequency words. So I don't care how long they have, heck, they could cut that, put it into Google Translate and have that read aloud to them. I don't care how long this takes. I just want them to understand level 1. Understand it, listen to it a few times. You're getting more vocabulary. And this is why you cannot go to another level. Another story. Now you need to go to level 2. This is just exposure for you, level 2 and level 3, but it's important because when you go to level 2, it's written in the past tense. It's if it's that kind of a story. This one is not. This is what happens right now. So let me see if I can find one that is like what happened somewhere, like the one with the tanks. The nice thing is that there's so many. Is this one working yet for the audio? No, darn it. Okay, let's go back to German tanks in Ukraine. Remember, this is the real news, but maybe they're interested in what's happening in Ukraine. So for several months, Ukraine asks Western countries for help. Let's say they read all of this and they understand what's going on. It's in the present tense. Then we go to level 2. And you see how it changes to the past tense? For several months, Ukraine asked Western countries for help to fight Russia. Ukraine asked for more modern tanks. And so I don't even tell them, you don't have to do word work. I want you reading more. And when you read in the first level, it's more simplistic. It's in the present tense. So I just want you to be aware that when you go to the level 2, if it's that kind of story of something that happened in the past, it will be in the past tense. And the sentences will be a little more complex, and there will be new words. Some of the sentences that were short before have been combined. So just listen to this level.
For several months, Ukraine asked Western countries for help to fight Russia. Ukraine asked for...
Okay, so I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to show you level 3. Once you got level 1, where you spent most of your work, if you're a newcomer, you can even ask your teacher, what does this mean? I will tell you what it all means. I want you listening to it and tracking the print a bunch of times for fluency, to get more fluent with English. Then go to level 2, and you're going to see some past tense versus present tense. Your mind will just see it. Then when you go to level 3, it's the way everybody picks up the newspaper. It's about at an 8th grade reading level, and it's complex. After days of increasing pressure, Germany decided to send 14 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. But they're not overwhelmed by it at all. That's not confusing. They understood it in level 1. This is just about language. And I'm just asking them to be exposed to it before they go to another story. And I mean, this is so beautiful. If you like tanks, just write the word tanks in the search bar back at the home screen, and you will see tons of stories about tanks. You'll just see a ton of story if that's what you want to read about. So I think I'm done. I think I went 2 minutes over. Is that right, Terry? I think Terry's there, but she might be on mute.
Yeah, it's fine. We're all enjoying listening to this. This is great information.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I know I went 2 minutes over, but I just really want to end with 2 of my students. We did a webinar, and it's there in the Padlet for you about how to use technology with students. But I had the kids help me. 2 newcomers that came that year, but they learn English pretty quickly when they're engaged and reading more. And one of them is sharing, well, I'm just asking them what worked in our classroom.
Other in class that is making
right here.
What are some things that you guys do on your own time with technology? And I'll stop screen sharing because that might be better. What are you guys using on your own time to accelerate your English? Because if people didn't get that, you guys were already proficient in English last year, which was when you were only in the country just like 1 year. So I know you were doing some things on your own. Talk about the things you do on your own when you're not in our class.
Well, for me, I use most of the time NewsinLevels, which is just like news, but in a basic level. So level 1, 2, and 3, and it's like more words in each level. So that helps a lot because you can understand from the first level, and then when you go to the next level, you can it has more words and more vocabularies, and with the definitions down there, and there's a YouTube video also as well that tells and you can track the print and you can hear it at the same time. That's going to be a lot of it's going to be helpful. So yeah,
absolutely.
That's
I'm going to go.
And so I interrupt him like an idiot. I was so mad that I interrupted him, but I was telling the people that were watching the webinar, because they were in the chat going, what is he asking? What is he talking about? And so I interrupt him and tell him, okay, I'm going to put this in the chat because teachers want to know what you're talking about.
Go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and add NewsinLevels to the Padlet. And that way, because I know so many of my students really like it. And there's, you know what, Ali, there's another one called NewsELA. And that is very similar. But one of the reasons our class likes NewsinLevels is because you don't need to log in. If you could give it to your friend, you could give it, if somebody's only in our class for just 1 month, or, you want to tell your friends about it, there's no login required. And that some of our population, some of our kiddos are not with us for very long. So I want to make sure that they know that with News and Levels, they can be reading articles articles can be read to them. And then the same article, like you said, level 2, level 3.
So that webinar is also there. And oh, thank you, Sarah, for telling me you've got some time there. So I do want to end. It was just such a game changer because the research tells us that if kids are motivated to read, they're going to read more. And if they read more, their language acquisition is going to come faster. And of course, it's going to support their literacy. But what are they going to read? Why would they want to read it? So there has to be choice. There has to be choice. There's research in this article by Larry Ferlazzo and Sir Ken Robinson and other researchers about how what helps kids find their motivation. We didn't have kids that weren't motivated. They didn't come motivated, but you focus on choice, because when the students choose things, you're more motivated. Also, a sense of competence. That boy's telling you, I got better at it. I saw more vocabulary. There was just, that's a sense of competence. Relevancy. How is what I'm reading relevant to my life? Well, you picked it. So it's relevant by nature because they're picking it because it's of interest to them. And then relatedness is relationships. And I'm learning more about them every day when I ask them what they're reading about. So again, back to Elise's work and how important it is. So there is a little video in here. If you just want to play it for your students, it's what I talked about.
If you want to learn English, read.
So I just tell folks, and I often give this to parents and people who just want to know how to learn English as fast as possible. Like, well, it's about reading, and this website can help you read. And let me give you this 5-minute video that can explain to you how to use a website that I really recommend. So all of this to say thank you for today, you guys. I hope this has been helpful. There are a lot of things we do in class. We do use News and Levels in class, but we do things like this. I just use the picture from a news article, and then we describe what we see before we read, and then we analyze it. And that's all from the work of Noah Daniel. And then we read it, and this is how my kids know. How are you going to read it? Well, you guys can all read at different levels. So everybody needs to annotate. But here are your options. You can have it read aloud to you if you have that feature on what you're reading, like News and Levels. You can translate some keywords, but come back to the English and then track the print. Again, you could read with a buddy where one of you reads out loud and the other one suggests the annotations. But you're still all chunking and talking, chunking and annotating, chunking and annotating, chunking and annotating. And my most marginalized kids that just came this week might be at the table with me doing this kind of buddy read kind of thing. And maybe we're not getting through the whole article. It's okay. They're learning how important it is to chunk and talk and chunk and talk. And, so there are a lot of ideas of what we can do. I do have on the Padlet a choice for News and Levels. What's the choice? That's for substitutes, right? Describe what was the most interesting thing to you. How can you use what you learned today? Write a letter to I usually don't like to do that because I want it just to be free, voluntary. But if they have a substitute, I want them to have something meaningful. And so that's on your Padlet also. Okay, so I'm going to end there. I'm sorry I went over on time, but you can reach me at carol@seidlitzeducation.com. And I also want to tell you, go to the Seidlitz booth today. Allison Hand is at the Seidlitz virtual booth, and she's got lots of giveaways. But if you're watching this in replay, we thank you for that also. And I'll just end there, Terry. I'm so sorry I went way over.